The Ipuwer papyrus, also known as the Admonitions of Sage, is an ancient Egyptian text dated to around 2000 BC. It describes Egypt as afflicted by natural resources and in a state of chaos, on which the Moses exodus from Egypt was based on. The plagues in the Bible are ordinary events described in typical Egyptian literary metaphors. In the biblical version, Moses went to Egypt to confront the Pharaoh about freeing the Israelite slaves. Because Pharaoh refused, Moses casts a number of plagues upon Egypt. Over time, the severity of the plagues escalated until eventually every firstborn child of Egypt was killed. What reads to us like a series of escalating plagues brought upon Egypt by Moses is actually an exaggerated account of the trials and tribulations of life in ancient times. The biblical authors drew upon common scribal practices in Egypt, which can be seen from a comparison between the biblical account of the 10 plagues and events in the Egyptian Ipuwer papyrus. Although the papyrus itself may date to the 19th dynasty, the writing style embraces Middle Egyptian, an indication that the text was copied from a much older document. Modern scholars see the initial composition of the Exodus story as a product of the Babylonian exile around 600 BC, based on earlier written and oral traditions. In a separate video, I will break down the actual authorship of the story and the numerous writers who constructed this story. Suffice to say that the story was plagiarized from earlier Egyptian literary material. As we take a deeper look, bear in mind that the plagiarism is not word for word, but clearly evident as a copy, as were most Old Testament texts. Plague is throughout the land, blood is everywhere. The Bible, there was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. Lower Egypt weeps. The entire palace is without its revenue. To it belong wheat, barley, geese, and fish. The Bible says, and the fish that was in the river died. Neither fruit or herbage can be found. Everywhere barley has perished. Exodus says, and all the fruit of the trees which the hail had left, and there remained not any green thing in the trees, or in the herbs of the field, through all the land of Egypt. All animals, their hearts weep, cattle moan. Exodus says, the hand of the Lord is upon thy cattle which is in the field. There shall be a very grievous murrain. There's blood everywhere. Lo, the river is blood. Exodus says, all the waters that were in the river were turned to blood. Lo, trees are felled, branches stripped. Exodus says, and the hail brake every tree of the field. Lo, grain is lacking on all sides. Exodus says, and the flax and the barley was smitten. Men shrink from tasting. They thirst after water, for they could not drink of the water of the river. Exodus says, and the Egyptians digged around about the water to drink, for they could not drink of the water of the river. Indeed, all animals, their hearts weep, cattle moan because of the state of the land. The Bible says, and all the cattle of Egypt died. Groaning is throughout the land, mingled with laments. The Bible says, and there was a great cry in Egypt. Lo, many dead are buried in the river, the stream is grave, the tomb became stream, and he who puts his brother in the ground everywhere. The Bible says, for the Egyptians buried all their firstborn. Gates, columns, and walls are consumed by fire. Exodus says, and fire came down to earth. Birds find neither fruit nor herbs. Exodus, they did eat every herb of the land, and all the fruit of the trees which the hail had left. Pestilence is throughout the land. Exodus says, I have sent forth my hand and smitten you and your people with pestilence. Behold, cattle are left astray, and there is none to gather them together. Each man fetches for himself those that are branded with his name. Exodus says, gather thy cattle, and all that thou hast in the field. And he that regardeth not the word of the Lord left his servants and his cattle in the field. The land is not light. Exodus says, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt. Forsooth, the children of princes are dashed against the walls. Forsooth, the children of princes are cast in the streets. Exodus says, and it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne, unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon. He who places his brother in the ground is everywhere. Exodus says, there was not a house where there was not one dead. All is ruin. Exodus says, Egypt is destroyed. Reading the two sets of passages side by side from a literary standpoint, the Bible and the Ipuwer each described Egypt under similar circumstances but in different time frames. There was nothing miraculous about the conditions described, nor do we have any evidence from Egyptian records that the firstborn child of each Egyptian family died on one night. Such an event would not have gone unnoticed or unrecorded. Neither is there any archaeological evidence of the Exodus, or mass Israelite slavery in Egypt, or of the fictional Moses character. We will continue to explore many more Old Testament plagiarized texts in future videos. Thank you.